This last question is actually for the whole panel. How do you support off-site auditors?
I'll start on this one. I've done, since COVID came along, clients have been asking for off-site audits and to minimize the presence of auditors on site. And I would say that that is not an ideal situation. Completely remote audits limit the ability for personnel interaction, and it limits the ability to have immediate data access, both of which are extremely helpful in audit activities. However, there is sort of I'll call it a hybrid audit, where one or two auditors are on site and other auditor or other auditors may be working remotely. And that can be an effective way to accomplish detailed information review and to free up the on-site auditors for interviews and for on-site review work, things like looking at unit conditions and verifying P&IDs and similar kinds of on-site activities that you can run short of time on at times if insufficient time is available for the overall audit. If that is a method that you're going to use, then the electronic database that you're going to use for information exchange is extremely important, and it's going to need to be utilized significantly both before and during the audit in order for the remote auditor to obtain large amounts of information securely. So that's kind of preparation item one that's a little bit different. And the second item is that remote Teams or Zoom or other meeting styles are going to need to be set up for the remote auditor and their site contact or contacts for the related element that they're going to be looking at information on. And that's not typically something that you're going to find in an on-site, a completely on-site audit, but you will need remote meetings for a remote auditor.
I think I would also add, you need to make sure that you have a very good contact person for the remote auditor on the site, because it's very difficult for the remote auditor to, they can't go and just find people. So they need to have a contact who can go out and get the information you need when you ask for it, and that they can go and ask other people for the questions. I haven't had a lot of experience with it. I've done one, and it was very difficult getting the information. If you're used to being in person and going and finding people to talk to, making sure that everything is prepared and that the person you're talking to knows where to get the information that you need for the audit.
I'm not sure if you mentioned it, Judy. If you did, forgive me, but having a site, a SharePoint site or something like that for the information to be put on, and one that works easily. There was one that I was on, and their SharePoint site was not all that easy to navigate. And boy, talk about a pain in the neck to try and figure out where stuff was and to review it and all. That was not easy, because you just, being remote, you just can't go to that focal person or the person that you're dealing with for a particular element and say, hey, what do you got? Let me see a list of what you got for this. And then I can pick 2 or 3 out of there to look at or something. And so having a good SharePoint site to be able to drop things on and view them off of is really helpful. The other thing is scheduling those interviews and having, making sure that people are on time, how difficult it can be to do interviews when you're on site anyway, with people having meetings come up or just things come up and they're late or whatever, and it cuts your time short. That can be even worse with a remote audit. And so it's very important for people to be on time and to be there to get those done, to have a proper job done.
Yep. I will add one additional, actually 2 additional items. One is on that SharePoint site or your file sharing site. It can start to look pretty disorganized after a while. And if you go ahead from the start and organize it with folders for every element, that is a huge help for your auditors, right? Because every auditor is focusing on different elements. So that's item 1. And item 2 is, let me think how I can phrase this most correctly. So a remote auditor is mainly reviewing information and is less having interaction with the site. And how those sessions typically go is you'll have a 4-hour slot set up for a typical element, and your remote auditor is going to want to talk with a subject matter expert in that area and review the information that's on hand for a while, maybe 30, 45 minutes. And then that auditor wants to go away for a while and do that remote activity, review the data, come up with questions, come up with concerns, and then reconvene with the subject matter expert at the end of that session for another 45 minutes or an hour perhaps, and to go through the concerns that have been identified. And it's good to prepare your subject matter experts in advance to be ready for that, to work for a little slot, to be dismissed for a couple of hours, and then ask them to come back at a specific time into the same meeting to finish that activity with the auditor.